There is a log of red oak behind my barn right now that has been lying on the ground for going on 3 years. It is soft enough that I can push my thumb clean through the bark. And underneath that log, where it meets the dirt, the soil is black and crumbling and alive with earthworms in a way the ground 6 inches beside it is not. My wife has a row of herbs and flowers she planted over a pile of buried wood 12 years ago, and I can tell you without any stretch at all that she has not watered that bed since the first week of May. It is the middle of summer. Everything in it is green. My name is Elias Yoder. I am Amish. I have not bought a single bag of garden soil in over 20 years, not one. And the beds I grow in are richer now than the day I built them because the dead wood underneath has been turning itself into the darkest, spongiest earth you have ever put your hands in, slowly, quietly, for free. Now, I want to show you exactly how to build one of these beds this weekend with nothing but dead wood, some yard scraps, and a little patience. The whole thing will cost you nothing if you have a fallen tree or a brush pile somewhere on your property, and I am guessing most of you do. But then I am going to tell you the part that should make you uneasy. Because nobody at the garden center and nobody selling bags of dirt with the word premium printed on the front will ever mention that the best soil amendment on earth is a rotting log. There is no profit in telling you that. By the end of this, you will know how to build a garden bed that waters itself, feeds itself, and gets better every single year without you spending another dollar on it. Stay with me. Now let me back up a step, because before I show you how to build this bed, I need you to understand why it works. And it starts with one thing most folks have completely backwards. People think the problem in their garden is that they do not water enough. That is not the problem. The problem is that the soil itself cannot hold water. You pour water on and it runs straight through, or it puddles on top and bakes off in the sun, and 2 days later you are out there with the hose again. That is dead soil. It has no structure. It has nothing inside it to grab hold of that water and keep it there for the roots. Now walk into a forest. Go to the floor of any old stretch of woods and kick the leaves aside. Underneath you will find rotting branches, rotting logs, and the darkest, softest soil you have ever seen. That soil holds moisture for weeks after a rain, and the reason is simple. The wood that fell and died and rotted gave the ground something to soak up water with. Fungi moved in and laced the whole thing together with tiny white threads. Worms came after them. The wood became a sponge. That is exactly what we are going to do in your garden. We are going to put the forest floor underneath your vegetables. The Germans have a long word for it. They call it Hügel culture. Hügel culture. It means mound culture or hill culture, and they have been doing it in Germany and Eastern Europe for hundreds of years. We just call it building a garden the way the forest builds itself. You do not need the word. You need to know what goes in the ground. Here is how you build one. First, pick your spot. Full sun is best for vegetables. A bed about 3 feet wide and as long as you like. You can build right on top of the grass, or you can dig a shallow trench about a foot deep and lay your wood down into it. The trench gives you a lower profile and catches more rainwater from the surrounding ground. Either way works. I do the trench because I like a bed that does not stick up high enough to bother my wife's sense of how the yard should look. Second, lay your biggest wood on the bottom. Logs, thick branches, anything hardwood. Oak is the best. Maple is fine. Apple or any old fruit tree limb works beautifully. If you have a tree that came down in a storm last year and it has been sitting in the brush pile, that wood is perfect. Already partly rotted is even better than fresh because it has already started absorbing water and will not pull as much nitrogen from your soil in the first season. Now here's the part you have to get right. Do not use black walnut. Black walnut wood and roots contain a compound called juglone, and it will poison the roots of tomatoes, peppers, and most of your garden vegetables. Do not use it. Cedar is the other one to leave out. Cedar takes years and years to break down because it resists rot by nature. That is what makes it good for fence posts and terrible for this. Everything else, any dead hardwood you can find, goes in the pile. Third, fill the gaps. Stack smaller branches and sticks and twigs on top of and between the big logs. You want the spaces filled because those gaps are where your layers above will settle unevenly if you leave them empty. Fourth, add your green layer. This is grass clippings, kitchen scraps, old manure if you have it, any fresh plant material. This layer is your nitrogen, and it matters because the wood below it is going to need nitrogen to break down. Think of it as feeding the crew that does the work. Pile it on thick, 4 to 6 inches of green material on top of the wood. Fifth, lay down a good buffer of finished compost, 2 to 4 inches on top of the greens. This introduces the living biology, the worms and the fungi and the bacteria that will move down into the wood and start turning it into soil. Sixth, top the whole bed with your planting soil. This is the layer your seeds go into, and it needs to be at least 6 inches deep. 8 is better. 10 is best if you have the soil to spare. The deeper this top layer, the less your plants will notice what is happening underneath them in the first year. Last, soak the entire bed deeply. The wood underneath needs to be saturated to start doing its job. A dry log underneath your garden will actually pull moisture away from your plants instead of giving it to them. One deep soaking at the start solves that. After a good rain or two, the wood will be holding water on its own and releasing it slowly back up into the root zone like a sponge wrung out in slow motion. Now here is where it gets good. That bed you just built is going to change over the years in ways no bag of store-bought soil ever will. In the first year, the logs are still solid and the fungi are just getting started. By year 2, the wood is softening and the bed is starting to hold real moisture on its own. By year 3, the wood has broken down enough that it is releasing more nutrients than it is borrowing, and your bed has become what the soil scientists would call a net positive system. I just call it a bed that gives back more than it takes. And that brings me to the thing nobody warns you about, and I want to be straight with you on this because I will not pretend a method has no rough edges. In the first year, if you used fresh-cut wood, that wood is going to borrow nitrogen from the soil around it as the fungi get to work breaking it down. Your heavy feeders, your tomatoes, your corn, your squash, they can look pale and stunted. This is not a failure. This is the system starting up. The nitrogen is not gone. It is locked up in the bodies of the fungi doing the work, and they will release it back over the next season. But here is the fix, and it is simple. In year 1, plant beans and peas. They are nitrogen fixers. They pull nitrogen right out of the air and feed it into the soil through their roots. They do not mind the temporary draw because they make their own. Add a thick layer of aged manure or compost right around the base of anything you do plant. And by the second spring, the problem has corrected itself. By the third year, your bed is richer than any flat garden plot you have ever worked. If you can find wood that has already been sitting on the ground for a year or two, use that. It has already made friends with the fungi and will not pull nearly as much nitrogen in its first season under your soil. Now let me tell you how to make this more than one bed. One buried wood bed behind one shed is a good start, but it will not change the way your whole garden runs. What changes everything is when you start thinking of every piece of dead wood on your property as future soil. Every branch that comes down in a storm, every old fence post you pull out of the ground, every limb you prune off the apple tree, none of it goes to the burn pile. All of it goes to the garden. I keep a wood pile behind the barn that is not for the stove. It is for the beds. When a branch falls, it goes on the pile. When I take down a dead tree, the trunk sections get stacked and they wait. Every fall, I build one new bed, one bed a year. After 4 or 5 years, you have a system, and the beds you built first are performing at their peak right when the newer ones are still getting started. I want to hear from the folks who have tried this already. Drop a comment and tell me what kind of dead wood you have on your property, what you built with it, and how it did. If you are thinking about trying it for the first time, tell me that too. I read every one of those comments, usually in the evening when the work is done, and I learned something from them every single time. Now let me tell you about the part that sits wrong with me. Walk into any garden center in this country. You will find bags of soil stacked floor to ceiling. They say premium and organic and moisture control on the front, and they cost you $6 to $9 a bag. A deep raised bed takes 20-30 bags to fill. You do the math. That is $150 to $250 just to fill a single bed, and by next spring that soil has compacted and lost half its life, and you are back buying amendments, buying fertilizer, buying bags of compost because the soil you paid good money for cannot hold itself together on its own. And here is the piece that should sit wrong with every gardener who has ever dragged those bags to a truck. The best thing you could have put in the bottom of that bed was free. It was lying on the ground in your own yard. A pile of dead oak branches and a rotten log would have done more for that bed over 5 years than every bag you carried home. But nobody at the store told you that, and I am not saying those folks are bad people. I am saying there is no money in telling a customer to go home and bury a log. The company that prints moisture control on a bag of dirt has built a business on selling you something you need to buy again next year. A buried log gives you moisture control for a decade. Those two things cannot live in the same sales pitch. You think about what your water bill looks like every July and August. You think about what you have spent on soil and amendments in the last 5 years. Then you think about the brush pile in your back corner that you have been meaning to burn. That brush pile is worth more in the ground than it will ever be worth as smoke. So this weekend, here is what I want you to do. Walk your property. Find the dead wood, the fallen branches, the rotten logs, the old stump sections, whatever you have. Pick a sunny spot about 3 feet wide and 6 feet long. Dig a shallow trench if you feel like the exercise, or just lay cardboard down on the grass and build right on top of it. Stack the biggest wood first, fill in with branches, throw your grass clippings and kitchen scraps on top, cover it all with compost and soil, and soak it deep. You will spend nothing. The wood was free. The grass clippings were going in the bin anyway. The kitchen scraps were heading for the trash. The only thing you added was an afternoon of good, honest work. By next spring, put your beans and peas in first. Let them do the heavy lifting. By the second summer, you will walk out to that bed in the dry heat of July and push your hand into the soil and feel moisture 6 inches down that has no business being there. The wood underneath has been holding onto every drop of rain and feeding it back up to your roots. Your neighbors will be out there with the hose every evening, and you will not. That is the whole system. Dead wood, patience, and time. The forest has been doing it for as long as there have been forests. We are just putting it where our food grows instead of where the deer browse. The folks in my community already know this works. I have seen beds like this on farms in Lancaster County and in Holmes County, Ohio, that have been going for 15 and 20 years, and the soil in them is blacker and softer than anything you will find in a catalog. I am writing this for the folks outside my community who were never told. And forgive me, we call them the English, no disrespect in it, that is just what we say for folks outside the community. The English have been taught that gardening requires buying things. We were taught that gardening requires watching things, watching what falls, watching what rots, watching what the ground does with what you give it. Next time, I am going to show you a single plant that grows back every year for 20 years, never needs replanting, and makes a fertilizer tea so strong it can replace everything in a bottle on the garden center shelf. One plant. You put it in the ground once and it feeds your whole garden forever. The Amish have grown it along fence lines for as long as I can remember, and I have never once seen it in a store. The people who cleared this ground with nothing but an axe and a strong back knew things that cost nothing and last forever. We are only just starting to remember them.